you so much.
Donald Trump is threatening everything we hold dear, and that includes Quebec.
Quebec is a jewel in the crown, and Quebecers deserve to have people fighting to defend not banks and rich Canadians, but in 2021, I promised that we would fight to improve the quality of life of people in Quebec, and that's exactly what we did. With dental care, we helped more than 500,000 people in Quebec to receive dental care. We began the basis for universal and fully public pharmacare, starting with diabetics medications and contraceptives, both free. With our agreement, we were able to protect Quebec's weight in the House of Commons, and we forced the federal government to make more investments in health care. We showed Quebecers that the NDP can deliver for them, and that people need the NDP in Ottawa to make things move forward. Now, people need New Democrats to prevent Mark Carney or Pierre Poilievre from cutting services, sacrificing who we are, what we hold dear, and working because they only want to work for rich CEOs. We want to prevent that. And today, with great pride, I am announcing our Quebec platform, In It for Quebecers. This is no time to be making cuts or making sacrifices that hurt our country. It's time to invest to build a national hydroelectric grid from east to west that will benefit Quebec and all of Canada. It's time to invest more in our healthcare system, not cut it. Quebecers are better served when there is not a single party holding all the power in Ottawa. Quebecers are better served when the NDP has the power to improve people's lives, as we've done in the past. The trade war caused by Donald Trump is hurting Canadian workers and making life more expensive. In this current world, it's important to know who is there to defend your interests in Ottawa, and who will do so. Pierre Poilievre will defend the ultra-rich. We want to help you, and that's exactly what we intend to do. Thank you.
On va commencer avec les questions en salle. Une question, un follow-up. We'll start with the questions in the room. One question, one follow-up. Juliane Lapointe de Radio-Canada.
Oui. Bon, rebonjour, Monsieur Singh. Oui,
hello, Mr. Singh. Your colleague, Alexandre, you presented as someone who's not afraid of challenges, and you have your slogan, In It for You. And there are 10 days left in the campaign. You don't have the kind of support you were hoping to get in this campaign. You are battling a cold right now. Do you feel tired? And how do you see the challenges in the coming days? No, not at all. We're full of energy. We're very excited. And there were parts of the debate that I'm very proud of, the fact that we were able to share our message. And in addition to that, I think that people really deserve better. We showed, as Alexandre has said, that the Bloc is a completely useless party. It's as useless as the monarchy, because what have they done? What did they do in a minority government? Nothing. Now we need someone who will really fight for you. So here in Berthier, That's what you need. You need people who will really fight for you. And it's important that people know that we are full of energy because we are always in it for you. We work for people with conviction. We think that the world is better when we look after each other. Quebec is better when we look after each other. And you know that. This is a Quebec value. It's a very deep-rooted value here, and we represent that value because that's exactly what we did with dental care. That's a way of looking after our seniors, our children. With pharmacare, that means that everyone can access drugs and medications. So our values are Quebec values. We're presenting our Quebec platform today. We're proud of it. And yes, there are 10 days left, but I can assure you that we saw during the debates that there are threats being proposed by Mark Carney. Unfortunately, he's preparing to make cuts. He's preparing to cut the services that you need. If you want to put a stop to that, you have the power to do so. You can vote for the NDP to send NDP MPs to Ottawa who will defend what you hold dear. The Quebec platform is being launched today, very close to the end of the campaign, so it's a bit late. But in a few hours, you'll be out west. Do you have the sense that your candidates are better without you to defend Quebec's interests? No, not at all. No, not at all. I am here to present our platform for Quebec with a great deal of pride, with extraordinary candidates with me, and they will continue the battle here in Quebec. I have full confidence in their work, and we will continue to travel right across the country because it's important for all Canada to know that we're there for them. If you're afraid of conservative cuts, if you're afraid of the cuts being proposed by Mark Carney to health care, to the things that you need, to the services you require, you have the power to vote for the NDP. If you saw the Bloc and you're thinking, oh, well, yeah, they really didn't do anything for me or my family for years now in a minority government. Well, now you have a choice. Vote for the NDP, and we will fight for you every single day. We're in it for you.
David Thurton, CBC News.
Hey, bonjour tout le monde. Hey, bonjour. I'm just wondering, Mr. Singh, if
you're working on your French.
Oh yeah, I'm trying every day, learning a lot today. I'm just wondering, for just our English audience, if you don't mind, just giving us the call notes of your Quebec platform launch. I'm wondering specifically if you can maybe talk about your plans for immigration and also that East-West power grid and how Quebec plays into that.
Sure. I can just touch on a little bit of what Alexandre shared and what Ruth Hélène shared. So Ruth Hélène is someone who has really embraced life here in Berthier-Masconaget. She is a full-time worker in terms of the agriculture sector. She is proud of that. She's heavily involved in the sector, and she understands the struggles for people who are farmers, who are small farmers, medium-sized farmers. She understands what it's like, and so she presented a part of our plan to protect farmers. We want to protect and strengthen the agriculture sector in our country because it's fundamental for our sovereignty. We've got to be able to feed ourselves as a country. We can't be reliant on other countries to feed ourselves, and the way we do that is by supporting farmers. And so she laid out the importance of that by bringing in laws that protect supply management, laws that protect and support farmers. Alexandre Boulous talked about the importance of the environment, and something very important, deeply important to people in Quebec, of course for Canadians across the country. And he talked specifically about the St. Lawrence River and how it is one of the jewels of Quebec, one of the jewels of Canada, and that it needs to be protected as such. And one of the things that we've been fighting for, and Alexandre Boulous has been, this has been one of his things that he's fought for for a long time now, is to make the St. Lawrence River have the legal protections as an entity, as a person. We want to protect the river because it is so fundamental for its biodiversity, for its natural beauty, and we need to protect it. He also cited the fact that the Assembly of First Nations in Quebec have also put forward a motion to that same effect, so we talked about that. For us, when we lay out our vision for Quebec, it's one of acknowledging Quebec as a nation, We are proud to be allies in supporting that. And so a couple of things that you specifically wanted to touch on, I love, because the East-West grid that I want to invest in and I want to push for is a nation-building project that really creates the energy and the resilience and the infrastructure of the future. This is the type of nation-building project I want to invest in, and it would be an East-West energy grid that would connect all the way from the West Coast to the East Coast, and it would allow for Canada to have access to low-cost hydroelectric energy. For Quebec, what that would mean is, instead of having to be dependent on selling energy only to the States, Quebec could sell energy to the rest of Canada. We would become stronger, we'd become more resilient, and it would lower energy cost for people. It would also create a stronger base for electricity access for industry and technology sectors. So we could actually build the technology and the energy and the industry of the future here in Canada.
Okay, and just looking ahead to when your party is going to release its full platform, when is that going to be? And more importantly, is it going to be costed?
Yeah, we'll release the details very soon. I think all the parties are releasing it around the same time, it turns out. I want to point out some key differences, though. We are the only party talking about real increases in revenue so that we can actually invest in Canadians and not cut the things that you need. And it's important to note, every other party, the Liberals and the Conservatives, are going to cut, and they're not shy about it. They're going to cut the things that you need. The Conservatives said they're going to cut healthcare, they're going to cut pensions, they're going to cut services, they're going to cut employment insurance, they're going to cut what people need in a time of crisis. And I think more and more Canadians are saying, you know, that's not good for me, that's not good for my family, that's not good for the country, and they're rejecting that message. But people are looking at Mark Carney and saying, well, wait a second, he's also proposing some serious cuts. I challenged him on it in the debate. Now he's trying to flip-flop a bit, but it's clear that he has said publicly on live TV, I've cited the date, February 16th, that he would cut government spending. He said he would cut in the operating budget. He defined it on live TV, said that includes transfers to healthcare, transfers to provinces, transfers to individuals, and he said he would balance the operating budget, meaning cuts, in 3 years. Longtime Liberals like Karina Gold, who was a House leader, have said his plan would mean massive cuts. Now, I know he's trying to say something else in the debate, but he had said something else before, so that really highlights for Canadians who are worried. You're worried about these cuts. You need to vote for New Democrats. You've got the power to vote for someone that's going to fight for you and fight any government that wants to cut the services you need, particularly our health care. We're going to stand up and fight back.
Is your platform going to be costed?
Oh, yes, it'll be costed.
Okay.
Yes.
Hello. You were chippy and quippy in the debate last night.
That's good.
I am wondering, was that your audition to be an opposition party leader in the next House of Commons?
I'm a fighter, ultimately. You know, folks maybe haven't seen that side of me, but I grew up having to scrap a lot. I fought for my clients, the people I represented as a lawyer. I fought in Parliament. I fought my whole life. I'm a fighter. That's who I am. And when someone is proposing to cut the things that people need, I'm going to fight back. If someone's going to say things that are untruthful, that are harmful to people, I'm going to push back. And when I hear, you know, Mark Carney suggesting that he's not going to cut, when he's repeatedly said he's going to cut, this is serious. People need to know before they go into that ballot box, before they vote. They need to know before they put their vote in what's at stake. And so I need Canadians to know that he is going to cut. And it is worrisome. It is something that people should be worried about. At a time of so much uncertainty and worry and so much chaos being created by Donald Trump, Canadians need to know that we're going to stand firm and defend the things that matter to us. And if you're worried after having heard Mr. Carney, you know, not be willing to close tax loopholes, that he was the chair of a company that profited off the housing crisis, and you saw as Prime Minister, he made a choice to give a tax cut that mostly helped millionaires, and at the same time is proposing to cut services you need, and you're worried about all that, you think his priorities might not be the right priorities, you have the power to vote for New Democrats. New Democrats like Ruth and Brosseau, like Nima Machouf, like Alexandre Boulris, like these incredible New Democrats. You have the power to vote for them, to send them to Ottawa so we can fight for you. Mais c'est vraiment drôle. C'était une bonne question à cause. OK. Oui. Donc, en répondant à la question sur
Yes.
la phrase en
Answering
anglais,
the question on that sentence in English.
Je suis un lutteur, honnêtement.
I'm a fighter, really. I've fought all my life. That's part of my personality, a major part of my personality, particularly when something will be hitting people hard or when there are decisions that will hurt workers, for example. I want to fight for people. That's why I got into politics to begin with, to defend people, to fight these big corporations that hurt people. I want to defend everyday Canadians, and that's the raison d'etre of our party, and that's why I got into politics. So when someone says something that isn't honest, that isn't right, when someone is proposing to cut services that people need, yes, I will fight. And that's what I did during the debate. And I can guarantee you that I will do the same thing when it comes to defending investments in health care, the dental care program, increasing pharmacare coverage. I can guarantee you that I will do exactly the same thing in the House of Commons for you and your family.
In the first 2 weeks of this race, your party kept saying that polling for the NDP typically picks up as the race goes on. That hasn't happened, so I'm wondering, are you still confident that your party will pick up seats, or are you going to be spending the next 10 days playing defense?
We're going to really just let Canadians know the choice in this election. I mean, that's what we want people to know in the last 10 days. What's at stake and what's the choice? Really, who's in it for you? And that's ultimately the question. And we have said this, and I really believe this, and more Canadians are telling me, yeah, they agree as well. Ottawa does work best when one party doesn't have all the power. I'm going to let people know on the last 10 days of this campaign. Think about all the things that we're proud of. Every single thing. When you just quick knee-jerk reaction, when people, you ask the Canadians, what are you proud of? People say our health care. Well, our health care only happened, and Democrats brought in universal health care. It's the only way it happened. Right? People are proud that we got a pension plan. They're like, I'm proud that we got pensions for seniors. Should be a bit higher, but we're proud that we got pensions. That also happened when New Democrats fought for it. And so right now, we've got proof. When you vote for New Democrats, what happens? Well, we fought for and delivered dental care. We fought for and delivered child care. We fought for and delivered pharmacare. All this happened because New Democrats put pressure on the government and fought and forced to make these things happen. And so, yeah, and so if you were worried, like, I don't know who's going to be in it for me. I don't know if Mark Carney's really going to be in it for me. He seems like he's good at business, but he's good at making lots of money for those at the top. I don't think he's really worried about me and my family. If you're one of those folks who are worried that way, you have the power with your vote to send a New Democrat to Ottawa to fight for you.
Yes.
Marina von Stackelberg from CBC News.
Mr. Singh, I wanted to ask what you think of the Debate Commission's work, if you feel like it is still serving its purpose, and what is your understanding of what happened last night when the scrums with the leaders were canceled?
I've learned after the fact a bit more of the details. I can tell you my position remains the same on organizations. I don't want to call them news agencies, but organizations like Rebel News. These are groups that purposely spread disinformation. We have heard for multiple reasons this is dangerous to our democracy, dangerous to our society. The public inquiry into the foreign interference and the commission, Justice Hogue said really clearly, misinformation is dangerous. It threatens our democracy. And these are organizations that spread misinformation. So I'm not going to answer questions from groups that spread misinformation. In terms of the commission, I'm not really focused on that right now. I'm focused on this campaign. Maybe we can take a harder look at that after the election. Right now, I'm focused on the choice that people have in this election and the choice of who's in it for you. That's us. That's New Democrats. Oui, donc ma position sur les
So my position on this organization, and in fact, I don't know all the details of what occurred. I will get more details about what happened last evening and the cancellation. But as I said previously, and I'll repeat it now, I think that organizations that promote disinformation are very dangerous because they represent a threat to our democracy. And the Foreign Interference Inquiry and Justice Og both stated that it really is a threat to democracy in Canada. So we mustn't be giving a platform to people like that, and that's why I will not answer questions from those kind of organizations that spread disinformation. And when it comes to the committee, maybe that's something we can talk about afterwards, after our analysis of the issue. But right now, I'm focused on the election, and the choice in this election, if you want someone who will fight for you, is the NDP.
My follow-up question is for Ruth Ellen Brosseau, if that's all right.
Yeah, for sure. You're up for it, right?
Got to get used to this.
Yeah, that's right.
You are running in this seat again. You have tried to take this riding back for the NDP from the bloc for the last 2 elections. Yep. What makes you think that it will be different this time?
So I was able to represent the people in Berthier-Masquinongé from 2011 to 2019. I ran again in 2021. 2021 was a different election too. It was during the pandemic, so it was really hard to reach everybody down Berthier-Masquinongé. As you know, it's a large riding, a vast riding. It starts in Saint-Sulpice and it goes right to Trois-Rivières, Pointe-du-Lac. Since 2021, I've been active on my farm with my partner, active in the community, active with farmers' unions. I meet people at the gas station. I meet people at the store. They're very worried. I announced that I am running again because I believe that I am the strongest voice to defend the people in Berthier-Masquinongé. You know, I'm a single mom. Jagmeet talks about how he's a fighter. I'm a fighter too. Right. I'm not maybe your typical politician, but I know the reality of the people in Berthier-Masquinongé. I know the solutions too, because since I had the chance to serve almost 9 years in Parliament, I worked with everybody in this riding, and I tried to get results, and we got results for people in Berthier-Masquinongé. So I'm really proud of this election. Yes, it's going very fast, but I think it's different because the times have changed. We are in crisis right now. People are looking for people to represent them in the House of Commons, to be their voice. And, you know, when you get on an airplane, right, there's the right wing, there's the middle, but we also need the left wing. So I think it's important, and I think people are really, because people could vote right now, right? So I think people are going to sit down with their family and their friends, and they're going to look at the options, and they're going to say, hey, New Democrats are there to fight for me. They did do well in Parliament when they were few. We did get health care, assurance médicaments, healthcare, what's that in English? Sorry, I'm not used to speaking English very much anymore. And we were able to get, it's true though, we were able to get advances for dental care. I spoke to somebody this week when I was playing bowling, and he said, you know, I have to get my teeth fixed. It was going to cost me $3,500, but with the NDP's plan, it cost me $500. I'm like, well, what do you want? Do you want to pay $3,500 or $500? That's what I want. I want the NDP. I want you to put forward more measures like that. So that's why we're running. En français, c'est quoi la question encore, là? En français. Mais c'est quoi la question encore? Je me rappelle plus. Je suis désolée. Là. Pourquoi je me présente? Bon.
Why I'm running? Well, I'm running again as a candidate in Berthier-Masquinongé, and I had the honor of serving the people of the riding from 2011 to 2019. I was very engaged. I was the whip in the House of Commons, and I have been a woman who is really on the ground. I've had some personal challenges. I'm a single mother. I had to get a number of jobs in order to make ends meet. And since 2019 and 2021, I've been involved right across the riding. I'm a farmer, and when you have a small business in the farming business or a small business in general, you know, you work long hours. So between 2019 and 2021, I've been very present in the riding, and I'm running because people are worried. There's a great deal of uncertainty, and I think people are looking for a voice that can represent them in the House of Commons. So I have experience on the ground, and I had experience serving the people of the riding for almost 9 years, and that will help them. So I hope to be in the House of Commons and make gains. I was playing bowling this week, and I talked to someone who was talking to me about dental care. He said to me, you know, dental care is important. And he said, you know, I went to the dentist and he said to fix my teeth it would cost $3,500. But with the NDP plan, it's costing me $500. That makes a huge difference for people in my riding. And this is something we were able to do when we were a small group in the House. But if we could have more NDP MPs...
Okay, you were listening to NDP Leader Jagmeet Singh speaking in Yamachiche, Quebec, unveiling his Quebec platform, but also being asked when he'll unveil his full costed platform. He did answer that, but let's bring in Janice McGregor, who has been also listening in on this news conference from Quebec, joining us from Ottawa, of course, this morning. What was the takeaway for you here, Janice?
Yeah, the NDP's done a bunch of kind of regional platforms, as you alluded to there. We are still waiting for their big national platform, and I have been up since 4 in the morning, and I'm just going to put on this microphone right here so everyone can hear me well. I'm sorry, folks. Off we go. Yeah, the costings for the things they're talking about in this document, which is kind of full of things bespoke just for Quebec voters, not there yet. He promised there is more to come. It's about 10 pages. I'm not going to read out all the bullets, but just to give you the highlights of some of the things they're talking about, particular protections for the agriculture sector in Quebec, particular accommodations for Quebec's culture sector, all the things that kind of makes Quebec Quebec. You know, in the past, the NDP adopted what it calls the Sherbrooke Declaration, which is a vow that it accepts what it refers to as asymmetrical federalism. That's a big fancy word for, frankly, special treatment, more powers for Quebec when it comes to things like judicial appointments, trade agreements, and other forms of sort of, you know, things where Quebec wants to be having more powers and frankly, more money to exert itself. I was paying attention to the stuff on resource policy because we heard a lot in the debate last night and again in this news conference about an east-west power grid. Why is that so important to Quebec? Well, Hydro-Quebec has a whole lot of electricity potential. Right now, without an east-west grid, it sells a lot to the states. And in this moment of sovereignty, we talk a lot about sort of wanting to trade within Canada. An east-west grid would allow you to ship that power to other Canadian jurisdictions with ease. But with respect to oil pipelines, you know, there's language in here about not having one go through Quebec without the explicit agreement of Quebecers and an environmental assessment by Quebec, which is, again, something that came up at the debates and is a hot political talking point in this campaign. Just quickly, shout out to Ruth Ellen Brosseau there. For people who never sort of followed where her story went after she was defeated in the 2019 election, of course, she was a bartender, didn't even speak French, was sort of a paper candidate, came with the Orange Wave to represent a large rural riding in Quebec, found love, married, has a partner anyway, farms, stayed, you know, as she said, speaks mostly French now. It's kind of an interesting sort of success story of remaking herself as a local agriculture advocate now in that riding. And you heard her there lay out her case for returning to Parliament and returning to active full-time life as a politician. If you were ever sitting at home wondering, whatever happened to her? That's what happened to her. She's running again. She's a star candidate. So keep an eye out for that on election night.
Janice, thanks so much.
You're welcome.